Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Brabber, but alongside me today, there is no Logan Camden. It's a Carson solo show because Logan has been sent to the gulags, unfortunately. No, Logan is at his sister's graduation, but it's just me today, and we've just got one game to talk about because the game later on today is Warriors, Timberwolves, and Steph Curry isn't going to play, and there's a big break. I figure we might as well just get an instant reaction out to talk about this Celtics-Knicks game because that is the more interesting series. And then tomorrow we will talk about the Wolves and Warriors with the rest of the Sunday slate. But this was a massive, convincing response from the Boston Celtics, who obviously fell down 2-0 to New York in very shocking fashion in this series, just absolutely crumbling in the first two games, becoming the first team ever to blow back-to-back 20-point leads. This was a massive win for them, and not a surprising one. Like I said coming into this game that I expected this to be a double-digit Boston win. I've honestly been trying to put it out anywhere and everywhere that I can after game two that I still thought the Celtics were going to win this series because there was a whole lot of doom and gloom and panic and the Celtics deserve to be reamed for what they did in the first two games. It was horrifyingly bad basketball, but they played so far below their standards. And it was like two back-to-back outlier horrible performances. And they are just the much better basketball team. And I really couldn't see them not turning things around in this series, not improving their offensive process, not shooting the ball a lot better. They were already doing a great job defensively. They just had to keep that up. And in this one, they did all those things. This is how the Boston Celtics are supposed to look in this matchup. It starts with the stars playing significantly better, but just as important is the fact that Boston's supporting cast and their offensive weaponry came through in a huge way in this one, and that's what really sets them apart. It's not the Brown-Tatum duo that is so exceptional. It is the fact that they have a Derek White, who is such a lethal shooter and such a capable creator. It's the fact that they have a sixth man of the year in Peyton Pritchard, who was absolutely electric offensively in this game. I thought the aggregate shooting they have was overwhelming in this game, as it often is, and just their ability to get the defense in rotation and then trust everybody to make a play. Everybody is a threat to shoot. Everybody is a threat to put the ball on the floor. Everybody can make the pass. That's what makes the Celtics so special, and that was on full display in this one. Peyton Pritchard was outstanding. I do think he's probably the MVP of this game. First of all, just shooting the hell out of the ball on pull-ups off the catch, but also cooking Mitchell Robinson off switches, which we haven't seen either of the Jays able to do. Like Mitchell Robinson is really capable guarding out in space, but Pritchard just has that special combination of shiftiness, of quickness as a small guard. He was creating a lot of separation for his pull-up jumpers and using his quickness very effectively in this game. So he comes through with a monster performance. Derek White was just absolutely money as a jump shooter, and everybody was doing their job. Like Drew Holiday doesn't have a super big box score impact in this one, but I thought that he shot the ball well. I thought that he created some good shots for others where he's posting up using his strength and then drawing the defense in, making a kick out pass. I thought that Al Horford was just in the right spots and he knocked down shots. He cut well. He was active on the offensive glass. Even Kristaps Porzingis continues to play limited minutes with the illness and still looks out of rhythm to me. His situation's just been a bummer, but I thought that he was able to get to some efficient looks and he was able to even make a couple nice reads as a passer. So they're just creating advantages consistently, and they are making the most of those advantages. And you have to give credit for the supporting cast for that, but also Tatum and Brown were both significantly better. And specifically Tatum, even though it's not a pretty shooting night, I thought was really good as a playmaker. And I thought that he was much more composed and in control in this game. Biggest thing that he had going as a scorer by far was the fact that he really found his pull-up three, which had been so badly off in the first two games of this series. But he was able to step into a couple of really good looks with Cat playing drop. I don't understand why the Knicks were playing drop for a stretch of the first half against Tatum with how well even Cat has been able to guard him off of switches. Like, that's been a challenge for Tatum, trying to score on those bigs off switches all series, and they were able to just kind of get him a couple of really comfortable pull-up looks because Cat was just sitting too deep in that drop. And I thought that they were going to play Cat in like sort of a high drop coming into this series, but then the switching was working. They went away for a time. Then they went back to it, and they were switching the bigs out on Tatum, which was more effective. But He got some great looks from deep. They were falling. And he's just consistently involving Jalen Brunson in the action, and then you're forcing the defense to make a choice every time. They don't want to give up that switch. Brunson has defended better on those switches than I thought he would have, than he did in the regular season, for sure. And when Tatum did get an outright switch on Brunson late in this game, he still committed an offensive foul. Like, he was not good as a one-on-one scorer on those isolations and switches in this game. Still, Tatum was not at the level you'd like to see him at there, but the pull-up three was going, and he was consistently finding ways to draw to and then find the open man, and that's where you get Derek White getting such a great shot quality. That's where you get some of the wide-open catch-and-shoot threes that Boston was able to generate in this one. So that's where I thought he was really valuable, just creating that initial advantage, putting the defense in rotation, making the read. I thought that Jaylen Brown was really, really good in the first half of this game. He ended up putting up some more middies in the second half that I didn't really love, but I thought his approach to start this game was great. You were getting him playing bully ball against the smaller wings, if that's Josh Hart, if that is Jalen Brunson, if that's Mikal Bridges, where he just has such a big strength advantage. He was maximizing that. And then when he was getting the cat switch, he was doing a really nice job of backing up, just building himself a runway. So he's starting his attack from 28 feet out, way beyond the 3-point line. And then either Cat's going to have to step up a little bit, and now he's got a guard further out in space, or Jalen just has even more of a runway to get downhill. So he was able to get past him on a couple drives. Overall, huge improvement offensively from Boston in this game in a number of ways. And this is why they're so special, man. I mean, just so much firepower, so many weapons, everybody on the floor being a threat. And obviously, this is a historically great three-point shooting team. And this is a great, great offense. This is an offense that last year was a top 10 relative offense in NBA history. And this year wasn't quite as insane, but we know that they are able to produce good looks from three at an unprecedented rate, and everybody on the floor is a three-point shooting threat for them in a way that we've really never seen in the history of this game. So it was a huge bounce back from the first two games when I thought they did shoot really poorly, but they also weren't getting shots that I loved, especially in game one. I thought that they were settling for a lot of really tough pull-ups, and then they got better looks down the stretch in game two, and they did just miss some good ones, but still on some really key possessions, Tatum and Brown forced the issue, took some really tough shots that I did not like from them. Now, we didn't see Boston tested in the clutch in this game, but obviously they didn't have to get there. They just were convincingly the better team throughout this entire game, instead of just convincingly being the better team throughout three quarters like they were in games 1 and 2, and then melting down the stretch. But really, where Boston has been consistently great in this series is on the defensive end. And I think that they've done a really good job on Jalen Brunson. He ends up getting his numbers in this one, and his efficiency wasn't good, but it wasn't terrible. But he's able to give you 27 points. But they have limited his efficiency overall. Coming into this game, he was shooting like 37% from the field, and he still shoots about 40% in this one. And they did a really nice job of keeping him from getting others going because they can mostly guard him one-on-one. I think that Drew Holiday has just been phenomenal in that matchup. And they're also doing a great job of exploiting the non-threats on the floor for New York so they can dedicate extra defensive attention to Brunson. For example, whenever Kristaps Porzingis is on the floor, Brunson is trying to use his man as a screener, but KP is basically just playing drop and ignoring whoever that screener is, because a lot of the time KP is on a wing. Like, oftentimes he's on Josh Hart, who's not much of a threat as a roller or a popper. And so KP can basically just be big as hell and deter Brunson drives, and he doesn't have to worry so much about Josh Hart being a scoring threat, even if he's ignoring him. Even when KP is matched up with Mitchell Robinson is not a very good offensive player off the roll. So I thought they were able to exploit those couple of liabilities, specifically Josh Hart and Mitchell Robinson I'm looking at, and I thought that they were able to allow the Celtics to dedicate extra defensive attention to Brunson, especially out of pick and roll, without being punished. But overall, this just was not a good offensive game from the Knicks. The ball really did not move for them. It was lots of tough one-on-one offense, and that really applies for everybody. I mean, Mikal Bridges was living on a very mid-range heavy shot diet, and he's very good from there. He was able to make those looks, but Cat, lots of physical, tough drives for him into traffic where they were doing a great job on him. And then Brunson, again, gets his, but still not super efficient and not super impactful as a playmaker. I did think the rim protection from Boston was outstanding in this game, and that's where I thought Kristaps Porzingis was easily his most impactful, but I also thought that Al Horford was great there. They just made it so difficult for anybody on the Knicks to score at the rim, and that's obviously an extremely valuable thing to do as a defense. So we're 3 games deep in this series. The Knicks have a 105 offensive rating. Their offense has really been kept in check, and Jalen Brunson is averaging 24 points, 6 assists on just better than 51% true shooting. So the Celtics have to be very happy with their defensive performance. They just had to clean up the offense, and they did in a big way in this one. I do want to talk about one more dynamic that I thought was problematic for the Knicks offense, and that is Mitchell Robinson's free throw shooting and the ability of the Celtics to just put him on the line so consistently. He is having the worst free throw shooting postseason we have ever seen in the history of this league. Actually, he had the worst percentage from the line that we'd ever seen in a single postseason with at least 25 free throw attempts coming into this game. He ended up improving his percentage slightly, I think, going 4 of 12 from the line, but he's shooting under 29%. And he's doing so much good stuff out there. He's dominating on the offensive glass. He's guarded really well on switches. And again, Pritchard got him a couple times in this game, but against Tatum, he's still doing a good job. Tatum had an offensive foul where he just couldn't separate from Mitch and got a little frustrated, tried to use his physicality, but ended up pushing off. But whenever Mitchell Robinson is on the floor, if the Celtics are near getting the Knicks in the bonus, or if the Knicks are in the bonus, and you are outside of those last 2 minutes of the quarter, you just got to foul Mitchell Robinson. And I can't remember if I talked about this after last game. I definitely wrote down notes about it, but I can't remember if it got lost in the shuffle somewhere. But the only reason that they went away from that later in game 2, I think, is just because their bigs were in foul trouble and like they didn't have a Hauser available to just sort of rack up some fouls. Their depth just isn't quite the same, right? They're down one body. And again, the bigs were all kind of in foul trouble, but that's been extremely effective every single time that they've gone to it, the hack and Mitch strategy. And if you can get him off the floor, that's a big win for Boston because he's doing so many other things at a positive level, but he can single-handedly torpedo the Knicks offense when you're able to put him on the line like that, and he just cannot make a shot. So in terms of where this series is headed from here, I feel very confident, honestly, that Boston is going to win. Like I said, I still felt that they were going to win after game 2, but seeing them clean up all the things that they needed to, even though it's still not a super efficient scoring performance from Tatum or from Brown, they did what they needed to do. They don't have to be dominant in this matchup. Like, they have advantages that they can exploit. I think that they still can absolutely produce better individually than this, but it's more so just about them doing the right things, them creating the right kind of looks for the offense, and then a bunch of great shooters making shots. And instead of shooting 25% from deep, the Celtics make 23s in this game and they shoot 50% from deep. I do think that they are just the much better team on both sides of the ball. They've really done their job defensively in all 3 of these games, and the offense just had to catch up. And they really did in this one. And like, props to the Knicks collective defense for what they did in games 1 and 2. But I do think that OG is really the only consistently high impact defensive player they have in their starting lineup. Mitch has been really good there, but even Mikal, he's good, but he's at a strength disadvantage. Josh Hart is at a size and strength disadvantage. Brunson, again, has held up better than I would have thought in this series, but he can still be exploited. So they've defended above my expectations, but when Boston is playing the basketball that they're capable of, it still doesn't matter, and the Knicks still don't have the defensive personnel to slow them down. So Boston is down 2-1, but I do feel like they are just so comfortably the better team that they're going to come through. And there's some parallels to like the OKC Denver series in terms of how these series have both gone through 3 games, and that like you have the one team that has clutched out 2 very close wins, and then you have the higher seeded team, the more dominant team throughout the regular season, who like has only won the one game, but that one win has been absolutely dominant. And I do think that like there's reason to be concerned about both Boston and OKC in the clutch because they've both really struggled. But the distinction I would make there is I do think that Denver has been able to play OKC more evenly through the first 3 quarters of their wins. Like, yeah, OKC was the better team for most of game 1 and game 3, but Denver was really hanging in there. In games 1 and 2, like, the Knicks were getting destroyed. Boston was clearly the far better team. And then they imploded. And I just don't think that that is something that you can depend on. Like, Denver has stayed within range, and then they've out executed OKC convincingly in like the last 3, 4, 5 minutes. Whereas the Knicks to win had to count on Boston just like fully blowing up and missing a bunch of open looks or taking a bunch of bad looks when they could have generated better ones. And I really just think the Knicks don't have a path to being dynamic enough offensively to keep up with Boston, because the Celtics are doing such a good job on that side of the ball. But my thought, like with all these series where we have these favorites who are all now down 2-1, if it's the Celtics, if it's the Cavs, if it's the Thunder, like, I'm betting on the better teams across the board. And I know that there's been a lot of panic about those high seeds in all of these matchups. And I get it, because you look at the numbers historically, you go up 2-0, you win 93% of the time. You go up 2-1, you win 3 out of 4 of those series. But the thing is, I mean, the vast majority of the time that that happens, it's the better team that's going up 2-0, or it's the better team that's going up 2-1. And that's just not the case in these series. Like, Boston is the much better team. I think that OKC is better than Denver. They certainly have more margin. I think that Cleveland is better than Indiana. And now they've put themselves in positions with both the Cavs and the Celtics getting game 3, obviously sparing themselves of being in that historically unsalvageable position of being down 3-0. Now I feel very good about their chances to come back and win the series. Boston even more so, but Cleveland I feel good about as well. I was really surprised by how many people were like giving up on the Celtics, because again, I was super hard on them after game 2. You had to be. It was terrible. But I still thought they so clearly had so many advantages and so many ways to improve, and just so much more talent, and just a resume as a far superior basketball team to the Knicks. And they crushed them throughout the regular season. So obviously they've still got work to do. If we do get to another clutch game, like, just as I think that that's Denver's path against OKC, gutting out the clutch games, out executing them there, it's the same exact thing for the Knicks. That's where you think, okay, Jalen Brunson is probably going to be the best player on the floor in the last few minutes of a game. And Tatum and Brown have to be better, and they can't get in this super stagnant ISO heavy mode, and they can't be forcing up these tough shots that they were in games 1 and 2. I just don't know, honestly, if the Knicks are going to get to another one of those clutch games. Like, without Boston collapses, and I mean that truly collapses, largely self-inflicted in games 1 and 2, this would be a 3-0 lead for Boston. That's not to downplay the Knicks. I just think Boston is definitely the better team. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. Just a quick little pod solo show from the boy. Obviously, I miss my sweet Logan, and he will be back tomorrow. We will both be back tomorrow reacting to what should be an awesome day of games with both Cavs, Pacers, and Thunder Nuggets. If you want more of our content, there is plenty more of it all across our YouTube channel. All of our full episodes, all of our post-game live streams are here. Also, our video essays and video breakdowns. And you can follow us across social, TikTok and Instagram at NerdSesh, and Twitter at @nerd_sesh. There's actually one more thing I want to say real quick about this game. This Kristaps Porzingis illness is just a real bummer. And even though I thought that he gave Boston pretty good minutes tonight, he just clearly can't give them that much. And he's not in rhythm, and he missed a couple good looks, but constantly we're hearing about how his fatigue is a factor, how his conditioning isn't there because of this sickness, just sapping his energy. And that does suck. Obviously, Big Al is able to step up and give them really good minutes, but KP is a special sort of weapon when he's right. And he really struggled in the first round series. He was just flat out bad. But now it's like, man, he just, he's playing okay, but he's clearly not right. And we'll see how that impacts things for Boston going forward. I certainly don't think that they need him to win this series. I think that they can do it without him, but in a potential Eastern Conference Finals series, could be a little bit more of a concern. They still have just special lineup versatility, and they really don't need any one of these guys outside of Tatum all that much. But it is a bummer that he's not able to be the best version of himself for the second straight postseason after what happened to him last year as well. Now I'm done for real. Congratulations to the Celtics. Staying alive, getting the big win. I will see you guys all tomorrow. And with that, as always, I have been Carson Breber. There is no Logan Camden anymore. He's ceased to exist. And this was Nerd Sesh.